accept Jesus Christ are heirs to the kingdom, and we will enter into the kingdom of God. How is John different?
He just hasn't went there yet, that's all.
We'll see it here. He's the last Old Testament prophet. He wasn't yet alive when the Messiah was to die, to be buried, and to resurrect again. There was a period of probably about 10 years. I'm not exact on that. I'm just trying to pull that off the top of my head. From the time of John's death until Jesus' death, burial, and resurrection. John was at the very tip of the Old Covenant. He was at the very end. And yet, there are those that in the kingdom are greater than him. How is that? What makes the Old Covenant or the Old Testament so much different than the New Testament, the New Covenant?
God gave everything over to Jesus.
But isn't John a prophet? Isn't John this great man? How is it that he could be least? What is the primary difference between the Old Testament and the Old Covenant versus the New Covenant and the New Testament?
The New Testament is Jesus.
So, John was before Jesus, and he died before Jesus' death, burial, and resurrection. So where does that place John?
Old Testament.
In the Old Testament. And what was the requirement under the law for the Old Testament? And where did the Old Testament saints go?
Abraham's bosom.
What did you say?
Abraham's bosom. Jesus talks about this when he's talking about Lazarus and the rich man. If you remember the story, Jesus is giving this parable about Lazarus and the rich man. The rich man lived a great life, but he was a sinful man. He died and went to Hades, or the place of the dead. Then there was Lazarus, a poor man, a beggar, suffered all of his life, but he had faith, and he was comforted in what they called Abraham's bosom. We've talked about this before. Before Jesus came, there was a place called Hades in the Greek. And Hades, or the place of the dead, had two compartments. The first one was Abraham's bosom. And the other was Hades, or what we would commonly call hell. One was a place of comfort, as Jesus talked about where Lazarus went, and another was a place of torment and a place of torture. And Jesus says in his story that there was a great chasm between the two, that no man could cross. There was this great gap. And so the rich man asks if Lazarus can dip his finger in water and put it on his tongue because he's burning. And he also asks if God could send Lazarus back to earth and warn his brothers that they wouldn't go there. In 1 Peter we read that in Jesus' death, burial, and resurrection, he first descended to, to the depths, and he preached liberty to the captives, those that were in this place called Abraham's bosom. After his resurrection, those that he preached to, those that were waiting for the Messiah, the Old Testament saints that were waiting in Abraham's bosom, were taken with him. That's why we see after Jesus' resurrection, if you remember, many people were resurrected. There was people in their bodies walking around. Some of those are these Old Testament saints. Now, today, Abraham's bosom does not exist. To be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. book of Revelation that the Hades and hell and is thrown into outer darkness. In the Hebrew, it's Gehenna. The eternal place of suffering. All of this, all of those that rejected Christ, all of those that rejected the Testaments are going to be taken from here into eternal punishment with Satan and the angels that fell with him. This was never, Gehenna and hell was never created for humans. The only reason humans go there is because their rejection of God's grace in the Old Covenant and God's grace in Jesus and his death, burial, and resurrection. These were designed specifically for Satan and his demons. It is a sad fact that humanity ends up there. So do we get that part before I go on? Was I clear enough? Okay. So, from women, he's the greatest. So when John died, he went to Abraham's bosom. And it wasn't much longer than that. The Messiah came to take him and the rest of the Old Testament saints out. Now, when Jesus died in his death, burial, and resurrection, he created the new kingdom. We are the kingdom here and now in the fact that the kingdom is within us. The Spirit of God, that Jesus is within us. That's the kingdom now. But some of the kingdom is yet to come. Revelation chapter 21 and 22, we see God bringing the kingdom here to earth. It can't be, the entire kingdom can't be here now because the redemption of the world is not complete. The redemption of the world happens at the end of the book of Revelation, after the tribulation, after God finally does an end with sin. That's the difference. John was one of the last people to have experienced Abraham's bosom. That's how he's different. Because he was not a part of what we would consider the church or the kingdom of God, which Jesus and his disciples preached about, which we will see in the upcoming chapters. That is the difference. Verse 12. From the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven has been forcefully advancing, and powerful men lay hold of it. Does someone else have New King James? Debbie, do you have a New King James there?
This is New King James.
That's New King James? Does that say the same thing? Verse 12?
From the days of John the Baptist until now, the kingdom of heaven suffers violence, and the violent take it by force.
What is Jesus talking about there? Is it violence from inside or from outside? Or what is Jesus talking about? How could there be violence? From the time that John's been preaching until Jesus is speaking here, how is he saying that there's this violence? Is there some sort of struggle going on?